Welcome to the show. It's the Jerry Ratcliffe Show. I'm Chris Graham with the Hall of Famer Jerry Ratcliffe. We missed our show last week, so we got a lot to catch up on. Lots of UVA football and basketball news, but we'll start with the ACC and what is or isn't going on behind the scenes in public everywhere regarding potential expansion. Jerry, there's been a lot of talk about what the ACC may do. Maybe it's gotten quiet the last couple of days. We may hear something soon. We may not hear anything. What's the latest of what you're hearing and what you're thinking may be happening?
Yeah, I'm wearing one of my ACC hats today, Chris, because who knows, it might be the ACC PCC or something before the weekend's over. Yeah, we all got excited when things popped back up again earlier in the week when it sounded like the ACC presidents and ADs have done more research. There's been more apparently behind the doors, closed doors meetings and things. And then everything is fallen silent again, which means I guess they don't want us to know what's going on. No surprise there, but obviously people who have been paying attention, and for those who haven't, they're readdressing bringing in Cal and Stanford and SMU. As we have discussed before, SMU would come in 5 to 7 years and take no revenue. Cal and Stanford would come in at 30% of what of the full financial package that a member would normally receive in TV money, which would give the ACC apparently approximately $72 million annually to play with until those teams get eventually caught up. It's a lot of money to throw around. They could do a lot of different things with it. I guess that would resolve some of the issues of equal revenue sharing, where some of the top or more visible programs or more successful programs in postseason would garner a bigger share than the others, and use some of that money perhaps for travel expenses. There's been a couple of reports from the West Coast that the Cal and Stanford would join in football, basketball, and women's basketball only, and then another that it would be full memberships in all sports, which I don't see the football, basketball, and women's basketball only making any sense, because I don't know where else they would put the Olympic sports teams. I can't imagine another conference out there accepting just their Olympic sports only. So I expect that if they come in, it'll be in all sports. But everything's gotten kind of quiet, Chris, which the only thing we've heard that might suggest that there's been a change in attitude somewhere was when Dorrance, the women's soccer coach from North Carolina, came out earlier in the week and said he hoped that Cal and Stanford died on the vine, and quickly sort of retracted that statement the following day, after I imagine Bubba Cunningham had a word or two with him. And he was talking about how glorious and how much respect he had for these Cal and Stanford programs. So it sounds like to me that perhaps Carolina is rethinking their stance on the expansion. They were a no vote, and I'm sure the NC State will go along with whatever Carolina is going to do. So if that's the case, I would expect that maybe by sometime over the weekend or early next week, the ACC might be an 18-team conference, Chris.
$72 million, if you divide it up by the other 15 schools, if you include Notre Dame in that, and they wouldn't get a full share because they don't play football, but it'd be about $5 million a year, which, is not going to move the needle by itself, but it's something. It's something. And And I wonder if that figure also includes, and I don't think it does, what the ACC network would get in extra revenues by being in the Dallas and San Francisco TV markets. I think you might see that number go up a little bit, but still, it would be something. Right now, the ACC pays out about 10 million less per school than SEC schools get, and about 20 million less per school than Big Ten schools get, and that number just grows because these new TV deals for the SEC and Big Ten are kicking in, and by the end of the decade, we're seeing those numbers projected to be closer to, $40 to $50 million per school per year. So, the ACC's got work to do there. But you wouldn't turn down $5 million per year if you can get it. It's better than zero per year. I did. The comments from Dorrance were interesting. He's of course a legendary coach. He's won so many national championships in North Carolina, to the point that Dean Smith used to say that Carolina was a women's soccer school. I love that. I love that comment from Dean back in the day. But I'd never really heard him interviewed at length until I saw him on the ACC network, that ACC PM show with Mark Packer a couple of weeks ago. And I thought, man, what a great guy. He's a great interview. He was just such a pleasant guy to listen to. And then I see the quote, let him die on the vine. It was hard to reconcile the two. Like, what a nice grandfather-like guy, and then he's saying, "Let him die on the vine." So, we don't have any news. It's all speculation at this point. But depending on what you're reading, what time of day it is, somebody seems to have a hot scoop that there's something going on. You just wonder at this point. We've seen so many of those hot scoops the last couple of weeks. Either at some point one of those guys is going to be right at the right time, or we'll just start playing football and forget about it all until next year. So if you had to guess, Jerry, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think we're going to see any news on this?
I do now, Chris. At first I didn't think that it was going to happen. I thought there would be just enough people opposed to block it. And originally, I guess it was with the straw vote, but it sounds like something has changed, and I assume that they're examining different financial models that could work. Sounds like some of them are appealing. There's also some chatter out there that Amazon is in talks with Disney about ESPN, which could mean more money down the road. And ESPN apparently also is talking about a new streaming service where they would charge $25 to $35. I guess I don't know if that's a month, which would be the most expensive streaming service in the country, which I guess could create more revenue for them. I don't know what that would mean for the ACC, but it sounds like everybody is exploring every avenue for more money. And still in the back of my mind, I was told something back in the spring when expansion stuff started cropping up again, that should the ACC come to some kind of arrangement with the schools from the West Coast, there could be a possibility of some Las Vegas game sites, and not to dismiss the thought that someone like MGM would not get involved, and that could mean bukus of money, depending on their involvement and what they want to do. So it sounds like there's extra revenue streams out there. It's just a matter of how much and who it goes to, and how they can make people happy.
The ACC tournament's coming to Vegas, baby.
It could be. We may see it there. You never know.
Hey,
See the ACC championship football game there too.
Exactly. Yeah. Fly out there and play some football in December. Be better weather than, well, it might be better weather than Charlotte. Might not be. The desert can get kind of chilly in the wintertime too. But in any case, hey, they're looking for the money, and that's what makes the world go around. So no surprise there. Let's switch gears now. We mentioned we haven't talked for a couple of weeks. A lot of UVA football news as the season is just a a week and a day from kicking off down in Nashville with Virginia playing number 10 in the coaches poll, Tennessee. We've got, let's see, a new starting quarterback named. Probably not a surprise as far as who that was, but there was news about a battle there towards the end of camp. Also, some injury updates. Jerry, maybe start with the quarterback. Tony Elliott formally naming a quarterback on Monday.
Yeah, I know you and I weren't surprised. I doubt that anybody really was. Maybe a few people were disappointed. There seems to be some folks out there who are backing Anthony Calandria, the true freshman. It came up from St. Pete, Florida. And I just didn't think for a minute that Tony Elliott would throw a true freshman into the Lions' den out in Nashville against a top 10 team to start the season. That could be brutal. It could be brutal anyway, but it was no surprise to us. I know that Tony Muskett was named the starting quarterback with a little over, I guess, 2 weeks left in camp, which would give him perhaps more reps, which he'll need to get ready for that Tennessee defense, which apparently has revamped from last season when they were one of the worst pass defenses in the country. But they brought in some transfers and stuff, and that defense I know has caught the eye of Des Kitchings, Virginia's offensive coordinator. We asked him about that earlier in the week, and first thing he said was their front seven, which apparently is some of the guys they've brought in are pretty strong up front and get after the passer. And I asked him specifically if he expected Tennessee to test Muskett early, and he said, "Oh yeah." He said, "We think they'll throw everything in the book at him to see if he can handle it," and I imagine that's what we'll see.
Yeah, I think I saw Coach Kitchings also talk about his expectation that Tennessee will load the box, try to take away the running game, and then also because of the extra guys up close to the line of scrimmage, that'll put more of that pressure on Muskett. And so double tough there if you can't run the ball, or if you make it hard to run the ball, and then also get some more pressure on him. It'll challenge Muskett to make quick reads in that pro style offense. So we got that news, and then also an interesting opportunity yesterday. And I know you've written about this. I've written about this. A lot of folks have written about this. But what a great story in the battle for place kicker. And as far as we know, from Coach Keith Gaither, the special teams coordinator, as of Monday, still a battle underway, and should be going on maybe up through next week. As to who will be the starting place kicker, both kickoff specialist and the guy who will be on field goals and extra points, between the incumbent Will Bettridge and a guy with a heck of a backstory, Matt Ganyard. Talk about Matt Ganyard and this 34-year-old guy, father of two, military veteran, who, because of a loophole in NCAA regulations, maybe playing in his first college football game, his first football game ever next week.
Yeah, he didn't even play high school football. So, he had never tried on a helmet until tryouts this year. He had always kicked without a helmet. So he was joking with us. He said, I put on a helmet and pads for the first time. And he said, he was referring back to a movie called Little Giants, where a kid put a cup over his nose and said, "Is this where this goes?" And it sailed right over the heads of his younger teammates who had no idea what he was talking about. And he dated himself again. So, but I found him to be just a delightful man. Like you said, 34 years old. He doesn't look 34. He looks like he could fit in with most of those kids, but just a great guy. We thank him for his service. He was a Cobra attack helicopter pilot for during his 8 years in the Marines, U.S. Marines. His dad was a 28-year veteran fighter pilot for the Marines. And I mean, he's living his dream, Chris. He tried out for the football team in 2009 as a walk-on kicker and made all of his kicks and still didn't make the team. They had some guys ahead of him. I think Robert Randolph was the kicker back then for 3 years for Virginia. And so he went back and became a fan on the Hill. There's a picture of him somewhere with he was one of 3 guys with the bare chest and the UVA. Yeah, I think he had the V on his chest, screaming from the Hill, rooting on Chris Long and his teammates. But he kind of thought that door was closed, but he never gave up on it. And it's just an amazing story. He got the email that he got that he didn't make the team. He put that on his iPad as a daily reminder that he didn't make it, that he just wasn't good enough at the time. And it became a burning obsession with him. And he kept that on his iPad for years, I think, until his picture of his daughter replaced it. But every port of call that they stopped at when he was on a 7-month mission on a small ship with the helicopters, they went to the Mediterranean Sea, sailed the Pacific Ocean. He bought a cheap rubbery football, the kind you'd buy at a beach shop down at Myrtle Beach or somewhere, at Nags Head, and kept it with him on the ship. And anytime they came ashore, he would take the football with him and look for a place to kick. He didn't want to go 7 months without kicking a football. So he was kicking in random islands off the coast of Thailand. He found a soccer field in Jordan and was out there kicking, and some Jordanian soldiers who probably had no idea what the hell he was doing were so curious. They came over and they couldn't speak English. He couldn't speak their language. And so he had them out there kicking the football with him. So it was a burning obsession. And then when he got out of the military, you mentioned the NCAA loophole. If you go into the military, you can get the NCAA will freeze your eligibility until you are out. I think it's also a religious exemption that they do that as well, like for the BYU kids. But he decided to give it another try, and he went to Darden School. He thought last year he might be able to do it. And then he realized that Darden's class schedule conflicted with Virginia's practices, so that door was closed. He thought maybe that was the end, because that was his 5th year of eligibility, and that was it. So when Virginia started practice this August, and he found out that this year's practice schedule would not conflict with Darden's class times, he asked Virginia to petition the NCAA to see if he could get a 6th year, even though he had never played it down before, even been on a team. The NCAA initially rejected that, and they appealed it and won only 4 days before camp opened. And so he showed up at camp, walked in the locker room, and only a couple guys knew who he was. The others couldn't figure out, well, I was this 34-year-old guy.
Who's this old dude?
They didn't even realize how old he was until Tony Elliott had him introduce himself at the end of the team meeting. And so he's been razzed a little bit by his teammates, but he's fit in. He's worked hard to fit in and just be one of the guys. And I think he's earned all of their respect. And you're right. He has been in the mix as a kicker, and Coach Gaither, I asked him specifically, I said, does he have a chance? He said, and this was Monday, I think, he said, should we play tomorrow? It's very likely or very much possible that he will be our kickoff guy. So even Tony Elliott said he noticed a lot of pop in that 36-year-old leg. And we told Matt Ganyard, who follows me on Twitter, he said, I saw that, and he said, Coach keeps aging me. He said, I don't need that. He said, Coach, I'm just 34. But sounds like he might be making that trip to Nashville a week from Saturday, Chris, and we might see him kicking off.
Hey, and here's the funny thing. I noted this in the story that I wrote about this, and your story was really nice too. That if so, let's just go through the hypothetical here. Virginia wins the coin toss, defers. So, a lot of teams defer, or if they lose, and whatever the case may be, and Virginia ends up kicking off. The first person to touch a football from the Virginia side would be him.
Yeah.
A guy who's never played a football game in his life could be the first guy to touch the ball from the orange and blue side in front of 75,000 people against the number 10 team in the country in Tennessee. That's just what a story. And I mean, the fact that, he kicked a rubber football for all those years. He kept it up. I think one part of the story was he reached out when he was stationed in San Diego for 7 months. He reached out to Nick Novak, who actually has ties. He's a former, I think, Albemarle High School kicker.
Yes.
Kicked in the NFL for a long, long time, including with San Diego, retired to San Diego. And he worked with Nick Novak. He mentioned some other NFL place kickers he worked with. I mean, he talked about in 2009 when YouTube was still pretty brand new. He when he was a student at UVA, he would find videos on YouTube, like instructional videos on how to improve as a kicker. I mean, everybody that I knew when we were in school, when I was at UVA, I mean, you'd go down to Lambeth and, the big, colonnades there and the big field, and you'd get a football and you'd kick it and see what happened. And I mean, this guy did that and did it well enough, practiced it well enough. And he's on as a 34-year-old, he's going to be, he's on the football team, might be the kickoff specialist, might be the place kicker, might be kicking field goals for that football team all those many years later. And you said 6th year, or you could say 16th year. He graduated from UVA in 2011. I mean, this is what a story for this guy.
Yeah, it's one of the great stories in college football this year, and I'm sure that as we navigate our way through the season, that will be a special story on the ACC network and ESPN and all the different networks that televise Virginia games, because it's heartwarming, it's inspiring, touches a lot of lives. It's got the military part of the story. Surely every Marine out there is pulling for him to succeed. It's just something that, you would expect a Hollywood scriptwriter to pick up and do something special with. And who knows, they may do it if he's successful. It's just a great story. That one of the great things about college football, it's just another heartwarming story.
He's our real life Rudy at UVA. And
yeah,
I'll say this. One thing I was disheartened to learn, when I heard the story when Coach Elliott talked about him at camp a couple of weeks ago after one of the practices, and he said, yeah, we got a 36-year-old kicker. Like you said, he's aging him a little bit. It made my brain start turning. Okay, so, I could enroll in Darden. And, if a 34-year-old guy can kick, maybe a 51-year-old guy can kick. I'll get out there and start working on my kicking game. And then, okay. So my 5-year window closed about 1999, unfortunately for me. But then, when I was explaining this to a friend, the friend said, well, yeah, okay. So look, just Chris, you're the kickoff guy. If you don't get a touchback, you have to tackle somebody. That's Matt Ganyard's issue. If he's the kickoff specialist, he better kick it deep. Or he might be out there trying to tackle somebody. There's what a just incredible story. And I think it's so inspirational to anybody out there. This guy, I mean, there were so many roadblocks put up in his way, and he's out there. I love this story.
It just goes to show what persistence can do for you if you don't give up on your dream. And you're right about the tackling. He mentioned that. He said, I've never made a tackle in my life. He said, I'm gonna have to get these guys to teach me how to make a tackle. He said, but I would like to make one just to be able to tell my kids someday that Daddy had one career tackle. But I'm not sure Virginia wants it to come down to that, because if he doesn't know how, he might not be able to do a very good job of it.
There might have been something in boot camp about a decade ago where he had to do something similar, maybe that will come to mind. But yeah, what a
Being a
great story.
Marine, I have a feeling he'll find a way to get a guy down on the ground.
He might be better at it than he thinks. Yeah, as far as
Yeah.
that goes. So on the injury update, I know the last time we had access to the coaching staff, I guess was on Monday. So this news might be a little old, but one concern certainly among the guys who are the walking wounded, Chico Bennett. What's the latest on him, Jerry?
Yeah, as of Monday, Chris, Tony Elliott told us that I guess Chico had gone through some arthroscopic surgery, and they found some bone fragments that had impinged his knee. He couldn't bend it, and so they cleared all that out. He was up without crutches and walking around, but they said that he can't do anything for 10 days. And that was, I don't know if that was as of Monday or as of after the surgery, which I assume was over the weekend. So I don't think he'll be available by any means for the trip to Nashville, but I would imagine they would hope that to have him back for the JMU game, where they'll need his services, being the most experienced pass rusher that they have. So good,
And what? Oh,
good news that they were dreading when they first got the news that it might be a longer period of time or maybe the whole season. So
yeah.
Good news for the big picture.
Yes, and a guy that's going to be very essential to the success of the defense. Very talented edge rusher. What are some of the other injury updates from Monday from Coach Elliott?
I don't think there was a whole lot of stuff that was very serious. Some of the offensive linemen were banged up still at that point, and which has prevented them from getting the cohesiveness I think they know that they're going to need to be able to run the ball against Tennessee. And Mikael Boley, who had an ankle issue, their starting left tackle, they've had to work with some other guys. They moved Blake Steen, a guard, out to left tackle. They moved Uganda Nama, I think it's Nana, I think, the transfer from Houston. They had him at left tackle some, and also at right tackle. So both those guys are capable of playing any of those spots: guard, left guard, right tackle, left tackle, in case Boley doesn't heal in time. Which gives them a little more versatility, maybe a little more depth on the offensive line. They hope to have 8 to 10 guys ready along the line, and that's what you pretty much need. And I imagine it'll be a pretty hot day down in Nashville, and they'll be going up against a team with a lot of depth. So they're probably going to need some fresh legs from time to time to try to just stay fresh in that game against a very very deep volunteer squad, because Tennessee apparently is loaded in most positions.
Yeah, when I last looked at the weather forecast for Nashville for September 2nd, 88 degrees, no chance of rain. The kickoff is an early kickoff there because it's a 12 o'clock kickoff East Coast, so 11 o'clock their time. But yeah, both teams will be substituting pretty liberally because it's the first game. And yeah, you're right. The SEC school, you would assume, and Tennessee being a team with playoff aspirations, they're going to have more depth there. So that will be a challenge for Virginia, no doubt. I just looked. Our next opportunity to talk with Coach Elliott is Tuesday. So because next week is game week, we go to the game week schedule, and it'll be every Tuesday that he'll be meeting with the media, and that's when we'll get the depth chart. On Wednesday, a chance to hear from the two coordinators, the offensive coordinator Des Kitchings, defensive coordinator John Ruzinski, and that's a weekly thing as well. So we won't have any updates on player status until then. But boy, we're actually talking about game week, which is we're finally almost here as far as that goes, Jerry. And Let's think here. Recruiting news now. Maybe start, since we're on football. Any football recruiting news updates to share?
Yeah, but before we go there, I was just a lot of people have been asking me about just how good is Tennessee, and I've started doing some research on them, but I was just looking at a number that was eye-opening a minute ago. That last year they ranked number one in Power Five or Division One football, FCS football, FBS football. I keep getting those confused.
Yeah.
Number one in the nation in scoring, 46 points a game, 525 yards per game. They have their senior quarterback, Joe Milton, back, who is 6'5", 240, who can run the ball and throw it. He's got maybe the strongest arm of anybody that anybody's ever seen, I guess. But I think all the running backs are back. 3 of their offensive line starters are back. Some of their receivers, I think they lost their top receiver, but this is a very high-powered offense, Chris. It's going to test Virginia early. But I guess the big thing is if Virginia can answer, and that's something that everybody's holding their breath waiting to see. But anyway, so much for that.
Since I skipped ahead too from one thing I wanted to get your thoughts on, the story. So a reporter after practice on Monday asked Coach Elliott about the Tennessee job. There's been the talk for a couple of years. When he was at Clemson, Coach Elliott interviewed for the job. It's long been said that he it was offered the job, turned it down, and he was asked about that Monday. Just he answered the question. He went into detail about why he didn't want. Ended up not taking the job. And then the Tennessee AD that night tweeted. You have to wonder the time of night, maybe a cocktail or two was involved. But Danny White tweeted about how he doesn't remember offering the job to Tony Elliott. And of course, Coach Elliott hasn't responded. I don't know that he needs to respond. It seems like the kind of thing that, I don't think any of us who know Coach Elliott think that he was making this up for the last 2 years, that he was offered a job that he decided to turn down. But that's another storyline going into game day next week.
Yeah, and the times that it has come up, which hasn't been often, I don't ever recall Tony Elliott saying firmly that he was offered the job. He may have implied it in some of his language, but he said that he interviewed. There was strong interest by him. That he decided that he prayed about it, wanted the Lord to direct him, and he just felt like it wasn't the time, which would lead me to believe that it was his job if he wanted it. And that's not far-fetched, considering he was offensive coordinator of two-time national champion and a team that had dominated the ACC for a decade, I guess. Certainly, if I was AD somewhere, you'd have to give that guy incredible consideration if he's interested in your job. So anyways, Danny White said an interview doesn't mean that a job was offered, but it's he said, she said kind of thing. And I think Danny White went out of his way to make a mountain out of a molehill. And does it really matter? I mean, who really cares? And if I were Danny White, I'd be more concerned with my former football coach tainting my football program with 200 NCAA violations than I would be whether or not I offered somebody a job or not.
Yeah, and if I'm Tony Elliott, I'm probably thanking God that I didn't take that job, or whatever the case may be, to work for a guy with an itchy Twitter finger and working at a place where if you're not cheating, you're not trying. So we'll leave it at that, right? Football recruiting news now. What's the latest on the recruiting trail?
Not much. I had little action last week. They got one commitment, which was I believe their 16th commitment to this class. He's a tight end from La Costa Canyon High School, just outside of San Diego, California. Matt Ganyard's old stomping grounds. 6'3", 225, kid named Trevor Ladd. 78-inch wingspan, which is pretty nice for a tight end, and especially a guy who's only 6'3". So, not a lot about him. He was offered by Air Force, San Jose State, Nevada, Idaho, Montana State. Some pretty decent group of 5 schools, and smart kid who was also offered by Columbia and Penn. So, he fits in academically. His junior season, he had 35 catches for 605 yards and 8 touchdowns. He was all league. And he's a preseason all San Diego section first team. He's rated the number 105 tight end in the nation. I don't know how you come up with that kind of stuff, but and the number 232 overall prospect in the state of California.
I'm not sure if he's not the 104th best, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, I would argue that he's at least the 104th best. But that's pretty much, he's a 3-star. That's pretty much the only football recruiting news from the last week or so. As we edge closer to the season, I don't know that we'll see a whole lot more activity for a little while, but that's pretty much it.
How about basketball? Any news there with all the offers that are out for the next couple classes?
Not a lot going on. Guys are starting to make some of their visits around the country. I know Don Knuppel was taking, I think, an unofficial visit to Marquette, or I think it's Marquette this weekend. He's coming to Charlottesville, I think the 15th of September. I think that's the right date. He's going to Virginia, Duke, and Alabama within a short time frame. I'm wondering if that might be the final 3 he's looking at. I know he's also looked at Wisconsin, his home state school, and again, Marquette's right there in his city. But this will be his second visit to Virginia, Chris, and so I think that's important that you can get a kid back for a second look and maybe a defining look. Duke got in late. Virginia's been on him from the get-go. I think Alabama got in late. So I know he's Virginia's main recruiting target. And I think this kid, Chris, is the kind of kid that could help Virginia get to a Final Four. In fact, if they do get him and don't get to a Final Four, I'll be shocked, because he's that good. He can shoot the eyes out of it, but he's not just a shooter. He's got great overall game, great overall skill. He's a solid kid. I think it would be a great teammate, and he would work well with the parts that they have and the parts coming back. And I mean, I talked to my son about him. My son believes that he's better than JJ Redick was for Duke. So, because he's a more complete player. So, man, if they land him in September, that would be reason for Wahoo Nation to throw a party and celebrate.
We'll look for that news. We'll hope it comes along pretty soon. So as we're getting ready to wrap up, Jerry, what else has your attention in UVA sports land?
Well, a couple of things. One is kind of outside of UVA sports land, but he's more related to your side of the mountain. We'd be remiss if we didn't give our condolences to Paul Hatcher's family, the great legendary high school basketball coach at Robert E. Lee, passed away at age 80. And I didn't realize this. I probably did know it, been forgotten about it because I haven't covered high school sports much the last 5 years since been independent. But anyways, 897 career wins at R.A. Lee Stanton, and a state record. Nobody has won that many games in basketball in the state of Virginia. So our prayers go out to him and his family. I've had the pleasure of interviewing him a few times over the years, and I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
And just a great fella. One of the other things I thought was pretty cool. Former UVA baseball player Zach Geloff, in his rookie season with the Oakland A's, got called up, as most Wahoos know. It's amazing. He's got 10 career home runs already, and that's the fewest games. He's done that in 35 games. That's the fewest games to hit 10 career home runs to debut with the Oakland A's in the club history. In 35 games, Mark McGuire did it in 41 games, and Jose Canseco did it in 49 games. So what a start for Zach Geloff.
And I would wonder, Reggie Jackson debuted as an Oakland A as well back in the 60s, right? So, I mean, when you set an Oakland A's record, you're setting a record.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's big time stuff right there.
Yeah.
And our friend Andrew Abbott keeps rolling with the Reds. I think he's up to 8-3 now and has like a 2.99 ERA and continues just to be a wonder king as a rookie with the Reds. We're gonna have to get him on the show before the season ends. That's for sure.
Yes, indeed.
But not a lot else going on. But the men's soccer team, which opened up last night with a 1-0 win over Iona. The women tied Michigan. I think it was a scoreless draw. So they're off to good starts. And
yeah, they're 2-0-1. The game last night, boy, the last minute, I think it was the last minute of the game. The Michigan had a great chance to score. And the keeper made an almost miraculous save to keep it at 0-0. So, but it's soccer season's off. Football starting in a week. Next week's a game week. So, all right. Well, okay. We always like to do this, Jerry. Let's thank the people who helped make this possible for us here on the Jerry Ratcliffe Show.
Absolutely. Let's start off with the Aberdeen Barn, Virginia's finest steakhouse. Great service, great food, great atmosphere. Drop by and see Terry and Angela. Tell them that Hootie and Chris sent you, and brace yourself for a great meal and a great evening of relaxation over at the barn. Gosh, who knows who you might run into while you're there. Every Wahoo that's ever breathed, I think, has been through that place many times and like to dine there. So what a popular spot in Charlottesville. And again, the food is superb. So go by and see the barn. We appreciate them supporting us, as well as the Good Feet store over at Stonefield Shopping Center, right across from the theater. Jonathan Cotton, Crozet Boy. Loved the business so much that he bought it and has turned it into one of the hottest, fastest growing businesses in the mid-Atlantic. They're all over Virginia, North Carolina. Heck, they're up in Cleveland, DC, Maryland areas. And they design special arches for your feet, conform to your feet to make your walking, running more comfortable, or standing if you have to do that. Even if you don't have any pain or discomfort, they can just make it a lot easier for you. And I know I'm one of their customers, and I can testify that it works, and you should give it a try. They're great people. They support UVA, support the community, and again, tell them that Chris and Hootie sent you. And Roback, right here, little doggy. Chris, they've just come out this week with a new line of UVA gear, some UVA performance wear polos. I just saw them the other day. They like to name all of their polo shirts, and they have the 3 Virginia shirts. One is called Virginia Game Day, and it has it's blue and it has all kinds of UVA symbols on it, icons on it. One is the Cavalier. I can't remember the color of it. And the V Saber, that's also decorated with V Sabers all over the shirt. And I assume they have that for men and women, but they have a women's line, a men's line. They've got everything: polos, hoodies, jogging shorts, sweatpants, you name it. You can go play golf in it, play tennis in it, wear it to a party, wear it casually around work. Check them out on our website. Get 20% off your first order. Helps us and helps Roback, a Charlottesville-based company, built by Darden School graduates. So thank all these sponsors. Without them, we couldn't bring you this free content every week, or the website as well. So we appreciate their support.
I'm going to send them an email. I've got a new product idea, the Hootie Hoodie.
That might scare people off.
Well, I think we can move some product that way.
Yeah, who knows? You might, maybe. I like the name.
The name anyway, it's catchy.
Yeah.
Well, thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to the listeners out there. Thanks, of course, to Jerry, the Hall of Famer, joining us here on the Jerry Ratcliffe Show. I get to be the lucky guy to be the co-host here. Chris Graham signing off. Go to jerryratcliffe.com. Go to AugustaFreePress.com for the latest on UVA sports. Everyone have a great week.